So that's the financial aspect of it. Last week, I mentioned that a local share grant program opened back up at the state recently. And that's actually the grant program that we got the playground grant from and the grant for the building at the entrance for. So the water project qualifies for that funding, so we could definitely apply for that grant funding to a certain degree, but I would need some guidance from you guys as to, you know, how much of the total project you think we should apply for. I think if we apply for a reasonable amount, I think it helps our odds of getting it. If we go in and we say we wanna hold 1.5 million, they're gonna be like, yeah, no. So, you know, if you wanna move forward with this, I would say, you know, that would be something that we wanna hurry up and jump on, getting that application in. It is due in November, so it's a short window that's open. In order to move forward to apply for the PennVest funds, we have to commit to the project and get the design of it complete before we can apply to PennVest for the funds. So during that time, there's a possibility that the rates could adjust up a little bit. So that's that. With regard to design proposals, we did get the Spot Stevens McCoy proposal for $138,000. The other company that I thought was gonna give us a proposal chose not to. So, so at this point, I just have the one. I don't know, Norm, if you have other companies that you might recommend, you could reach out to them. I suspect with a $1.5 million project, the engineering's probably gonna be in that ballpark, though.
Yeah, and the 10%
That's-
amount,
yeah.
that seems
Right,
about consistent with where you would expect it to be.
yeah,
Generally, smaller projects, a little bit higher percentage, because there's still some work that needs to be done. The larger the project, usually the lower the percentage can be. It winds up being a little bit more efficient
yeah.
from a design standpoint.
So I guess, you know, from my standpoint, there's kind of three things that I'd be looking for from you guys here in the near future. You know, is the board interested in moving forward with this project, first of all? And if so, do you want to move forward with Spot Stevens and McCoy? Who's giving us a proposal? Do you want me to go out and look for more proposals? Secondly, you know, should we schedule a special meeting to dig into these numbers a little bit more, so that we can kind of really get a good idea of how they play out more long-term? We did kind of a short-term view, but we could certainly extend that out. And then, do you want me to start the application process for the LSA grant? And then how much should we apply for that? So those are sort of the three key things that I'm gonna need some guidance from you guys on to decide if we're moving forward or if we're not moving forward. It's kind of where we're at.
Okay.
The grant, is it a matching grant or it's just a straight grant?
I don't think technically it's a matching grant, but I think you score better if you're providing a chunk of the project.
What do you think would be a good number to go for?
So, you know, when I thought about this, for some reason I thought 300,000.
So did I.
Did you?
Yeah.
Alright,
Well, I'm like cover engineering
yeah.
and a little bit towards the
Right.
project,
Mhm.
was what I came up with.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we can move forward, if you decide you wanna move forward with it, we can certainly, start moving, you know, get SSM, if you wanna move with them, we can, you know, get that scheduled, you know, you can make that motion maybe at the next meeting, and we can get them going on it, because we have plenty of, you know, reserve / fund balance in the water
Waterfalls.
to be able to take care of that. So that's something, that we can do.
And I'm all for moving ahead with the project. I think it's a benefit to everyone that lives there.
I think Norm has something.
One thing you might be able to do, and I found this helpful for certain grants, is there's grant coordinators that you can call and talk to them about the process and stuff, and you can ask them a couple of kind of softball questions. Generally speaking, from a grading standpoint, where do we want to fall? And I found that to be the case for dirt, gravel, that kind of thing. We can find what percentage, you can expect, how much skin in the game does the township need to have. And if for some reason you find that number, let's say, is 30%, then all of a sudden you can go after 450,000 or something like that. So if you ask those kind of
Right.
questions, you can kind of find out, because sure, you could go 100%, and like you said, they'll still go through the process, but by the time you get done with the grading sheet, you're at the bottom of the pie.
Right.
So you wanna find that sweet spot, if you're going to go through with the project anyway, as much as you can get, and still score high enough to get the grant. And it's definitely not a black and white kind of thing, but if you contact, like I said, the grant coordinator.
Yeah, well, and I
you
can,
might be able
and
to
I
find
can
out.
contact the person who I was communicating with on the 2 grants that we got, because he was very helpful. I mean,
Yeah.
you're right, I mean, he
Yeah.
offered suggestions and that sort of thing, so I would certainly reach out to him again.
Mhm.
The other thing I should mention, as part of PennVest, they also have grants available, but you don't apply for them. What they do is, you apply for funding from PennVest, and then they internally do a calculation as to how much cost burden this project is on the users, the people who are gonna pay at the end. And if they determine that the cost burden is on the higher side, they can sometimes tap into their grant funds and apply them to your project. But you don't know that until
Until-
later. So just kind of have to assume you're not getting them, and then if you get them, then that's great, sort of thing. Okay?
Also, I don't know if there's any benefit with, we had Beth Ann visit us from Penny Cook's office last week.
So she and I had talked about the LSA grants, and so far, and I had reached out to Senator Pennychuck's office long ago, asking for any grant funding, and that's really the only program that's popped up, and at that time, it wasn't open, so it literally just opened up last week.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think we come up with a good plan to cover most of the cost for this, right? And with
Yeah, I
lower
mean-
interest rates.
Right, the interest rates are great. I know it's a huge project for the development, but I think there's a lot of factors that really make sense beyond just the hydrants, right? Increased hydrant flow, we all agree that's a great thing, but, having a second water tank down there in the water treatment plant, because our current water tank is fairly old,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so if we have 2, then that just gives us a little more, comfort if there's an issue with one. A new water main, that would be great. Again, the water main in there is, like 30 years old, maybe more. So there's a lot of upgrades
More.
that are getting more, okay?
They were put it in 89 or 90
Okay.
when they went in.
So- So, the development is, the infrastructure in that development is reaching that point where, it needs to be upgraded, right? And so, we can take advantage of the hydrant issue and try to, take care of as much of this as we can to really make an investment in the community so that we're not, having an Ivy Ridge situation where, we're having to call in a contractor and we're at their mercy, to fix a problem. If we can get a schedule and get on top of these things, then I think it's a great investment for the community.
Okay. So what are our next steps here?
Well, if you wanna make a motion to, engage Spot Stevens and McCoy to, start the design, we can get that going, because we can't apply for the funding until that gets started. I would suggest we maybe schedule a meeting, in the near future to look at these numbers more so that we can figure out kind of what the rate increase is gonna need to be, so that I can go talk to the HOA and, we can sort of just start preparing people that there's, there have been no increases to water or sewer in the development for more than 10 years. So, and we're gonna talk about sewer in a minute, and that's in bad shape from a financial standpoint, but, yeah. So I guess at this point, if you want to authorize Spot Stevens and McCoy to start the design process, and then authorize me to start the grant process with the LSA. I think those are two key items.
All right. Any thoughts?
I think you need to take the first step and make a motion for this SSM, right?
Mhm.
And then, obviously, the LSA grant.
Okay.
I'm new to this, but I'm just wondering why there's so many problems down the Perkiomen crossing. How come this wasn't looked at in previous people?
Well, it's not that there are problems, at this point with the water system. Well, I will say that we did have to replace a couple pumps recently.
Yeah.
But, you know, to Ron's point, some of this infrastructure is, 30 years old, maybe 40. It's older.
And when it was put in, it was put into, to spec.
Mhm.
I mean, it was, that community called for 500 gallons a minute, NFPA. We're changing it to 1,000, which is great with the new fire load in everybody's houses, with no natural materials and so many plastics, and, it's a great upgrade.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I
other,
agree.
the other
I'm
challenge,
not challenging the question
No,
that,
right, but-
this needs to be done. I'm just, I don't know, preventative maintenance should be maybe put on a schedule of some sort.
well, I do
Oversight
think,
every 5 years or
yeah, I
whatever,
do, right, and I do think that we need to develop a long-term
a plan. So
plan,
you
right,
don't go
absolutely, so that we
however
know.
many years and you have a
but-
failure.
Yeah, but overall, I mean, the water system has been pretty darn good, which is why we have the reserve in water that we have. It's just recently that we've had to invest some pretty substantial amounts of
And
money
you're
into
looking at a
it.
33-year-old system.
Yeah, and it's a stressed system in terms of having to get the water from the water plant 100 feet up to the top of the development.
Why they allowed them to put the water plant at the bottom of the development makes absolutely
Yeah,
no
that's
sense.
before our
Yeah.
time.
But overall, the water system has been fine. I think you guys have had more issues with the sewer system than the water. And I think what we're trying to do is take advantage of, the interest in upgrading the hydrants by upgrading elements of the water plant that maybe we could get a few more years out of, but if we can combine the projects, it's gonna be much more efficient for the residents.
Yeah.
All right. Any comments on these motions before we make them from the public? Okay. All right, then I will make a motion to authorize Spot Stevens McCoy to start their design process. Do I have a second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then I will authorize township manager to start the grant process for the LSA grant. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay.
Yes, hold on.
Just one more quick comment. The advantage also from a design standpoint to move forward with SSM is that it's often is very helpful from a grant standpoint if you can submit a set of plans with it. They know you're serious about it because they don't want to go through the process of awarding money to, well, let's just see what happens and we'll go from there.
They
So-
won't even let us submit the application until we have the plans.
Okay, some, well,
Yeah.
and some are like that. Some, from a grant standpoint, you can do more of a paper sketch, if you will.
Right.
But if you've got a real set of plans,
Yeah.
and we've gotten feedback like that, where we've actually submitted a set of plans where the township said, we're committed, we're into this, but let's see how much support we can get from a grant standpoint.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
anyway, just
Right.
my 2 cents on stuff that we've done before that's been helpful.
All right. Perkiomen Crossing sewer rate increase discussion.
All right, so this one's not as rosy. As you guys know, we went into this year knowing that the sewer plant was basically running in the negative, and that we were tapping into its reserves to cover those costs. So now we are at a point where we've essentially kind of exhausted those reserves, and we are going to have to transfer some funds from water to cover sewer, okay? I gave you some scenarios. of what that would look like with different rate increases for the residents, because it's gotta be, the rates have to go up. We don't have a choice at this point. And so, again, like we said, the rates have not gone up in more than 10 years, and the sewer plant has had a lot more expenditures. And we have a significant debt of $80,000 a year that's gonna continue for 5 more years, okay? So, so here we've got some scenarios in your packet, kind of showing in the black boxes, you know, with different rate increases, how much we're gonna have to take from the water reserves to cover sewer for the foreseeable, you know, for the next 5 years, basically, till that large debt is paid off. So, you know, with an increase of $4 a month, it looks like we would have to basically transfer from water $317,000 over the course of 5 years. If we increase the rates $8 a month, that amount that we transfer from water would be $238,000 over 5 years. And it would basically kind of to not have to borrow money from water or transfer money from water, the rates would have to go up $21 a month, which is clearly not something that is doable. So I think the point there is we have to take some money from water reserves, but it's got to be a combination with some sort of rate increase. So at this point, what I would recommend to you is kind of mull over those numbers and think about these different rate increase scenarios. And we just did a $4 a month, $8 a month, and $21 a month. It can be something in between if you think, you know, that's more palatable. I don't think we can go below 4. And honestly, I think it needs to be closer to the 8. So I understand this is a lot to swallow, but it's something that we have to face just because we.
On top of that, we're gonna do a water increase of the
Correct.
project.
That's right,
Right,
yeah.
all right.
So if you wanna mull that over at this point and we can discuss it more at the next meeting, we can do that.
Okay. I know this plan's over for 5 years, but what happens if you extend it from 5? What's the longer term look?
Yeah, so we can, I think that's a good question, and we can do that, because for sewer, after 5 years, it gets good, it's fine, but if we've borrowed $200,000 to $300,000 from water, we then have to,
Pay that back.
we're gonna wanna pay that back, right? And the other thing that we need to think about, to Tom's point of, you know, planning for future upgrades, we know that we're gonna have to do some major investments continually. That's just how these plants work. So we want to make sure that we're building the reserves we need for those future projects.
Right.
So, Sean, we can definitely,
Yeah.
when we meet next, extend those numbers out so that you can start to see how that looks.
Something else to think about, like just based on, you know, we haven't increased the rates haven't gone up in 10 years,
Right.
right? So with this plan, I don't know if you can incorporate, maybe starting with a lower rate, having the rates go up over time.
So we can, but then that just means you're depleting your reserves faster for those first 5 years.
Yeah,
And
I'm just
yeah,
throwing
no,
ideas out there
absolutely,
because-
absolutely, because it's got, at the end of the day, it's gotta be some sort of compromise option, right? I mean, we know there's gotta be some amount of increase, we wanna minimize it as much as we can, but we don't wanna be in a bind with our plants either, right? So we'll extend out, those projections and we'll just kinda talk about it at the next meeting and go from there, okay?
Okay. All right, cyber insurance quote.
So, it was pointed out that we do not have much cyber insurance at the township. And our IT company recommended that we should have $1 million of coverage should something happen. Our insurance broker got us a cost proposal for a year of that, and it's $2,846.
Okay.
So I'd recommend that we go with that.
You want to explain a little bit more about the cyber liability?
Sure. So basically, people may have heard about municipalities who have been hacked and they've taken over their files and everything like that. And it's tended to cost municipalities a significant amount of money to recover from that. And so the idea is that this would, insure us should that happen. All of our staff did have to do cybersecurity training, like to kind of, learn what we should and shouldn't be doing with our
Should be opening
files
up
and, yeah. So we had to do that before anyone would even give us a quote. So we did that internally, and so this was the quote that we got.
Okay. This is, get these quotes, I mean, it's under, someone can see, you don't need to get three.
No, so we go through a broker, so they go out and they try to find us the best price for our insurances. So we just work with them.
All right. Questions, comments?
Where do we stand on that new website and the IT company there?
Yeah, so I had mentioned earlier in my report that the IT company has been helping us. They got a little sidetracked, so I'm trying to get them back to finish their parts so that I can get that to you guys. So I'm hoping in the next week or two. He keeps apologizing,
Yeah.
but he's not getting it done, so.
Does the state offer anything, since that's a state-run website that,
PSATs, they might be able to help us if
Cybersecurity.
he doesn't get back on it. I can check with them and see.
yeah,
Okay. Any comments from the public on this? Okay. All right, then I will make a motion to purchase cyber liability insurance for the amount of $2,846 for the next 12 months. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Upcoming meetings. Parks Board meeting is September 19th at 6 PM.
Oh, actually, that's 7 PM. I
Oh.
apologize.
Parks Board meeting, September 19th at 7 PM. Planning Commission meeting is September 28th at 7 PM. Board of Supervisors meeting is Board of Supervisors workshop meeting is October 5th at 7 PM. Announcements. Movie on the Mountain, Luca at Spring Mountain is September 16th and opens at 6:30 PM. Community Day, September 30th from 10 AM to 3 PM. Okay. All right, and then,
Can I just bring
Go
up
ahead.
one thing? Comcast franchise renewal, I saw that came through more or less in the final version. The last edits from Comcast were very minor, and I didn't have any problem with them.
Okay.
The current agreement expires November 30, so you have a meeting on October, and you would have a meeting in November. That would be before the expiration. You have to hold a public hearing. So, I suppose to be cost conscious, we could do the public notice for the public hearing and include language that says, immediately after the public hearing, at the board's regular meeting, they will consider for enactment, that ordinance, or in this case, it would be consider authorizing the chairman to sign the agreement.
okay,
Then you wouldn't have to have a public hearing one day and then advertise